Election matters. Did you choose your leader? Whatever your choice is, it should be good and it should ensure a brighter future. Vote for whichever party or leader you wish to. Once again, welcome to News Analysis. News Analysis, a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with the main points in a nutshell. China set to widen its embargo of minerals. Taliban elite aided by NATO join talks for Afghan peace. Palestinians shift focus in strategy for statehood. French workers vote to step up pension protests. Huddersfield man guilty of Gurmail Singh murder. More malaria deaths in India even now. And now the news in detail. China set to widen its embargo of minerals. China, which has been blocking shipments of crucial minerals to Japan for the last month, has now quietly halted some shipments of those materials to the United States and Europe, three industry officials said this week. The Chinese action involving rare earth minerals that are crucial to manufacturing many advanced products seems certain to further intensify already rising trade and currency tensions with the West. Until recently, China typically sought quick and quiet accommodations on trade issues. But the interruption in rare earth supplies is the latest sign of Beijing that Chinese leaders are willing to use their growing economic muscle. The embargo is expanding beyond Japan, said one of the three rare earth industry officials, all of whom insisted on anonymity for fear of business retaliation by Chinese authorities. They said Chinese customs official imposed the border restrictions on Monday morning, hours after a top Chinese official summoned international news media Sunday night to denounce United States trade actions. China mines 95% of the world's rare earth elements, which have broad commercial and military applications and are vital to the manufacture of products as diverse as cell phones, large wind turbines, and guided missiles. Any curtailment of Chinese supplies of rare earths is likely to be greeted with alarm in Western capitals, particularly because Western companies are believed to keep much smaller stockpiles of rare earths than Japanese companies. China experts said on Tuesday that Beijing's assertive stance on rare earths might also signal the ascendance of economic nationalists, noting the Central Committee of the Communist Party convened over the weekend. A few rare earth shipments to the West have been delayed by customs officials in recent weeks, said industry officials in China, Japan, and the United States. But new restrictions on exports appear to have been imposed on Monday morning. Industry executives said there had been no signal from Beijing of how long rare earth shipments intended for West could be held by Chinese customs officials. A few shipments are still being allowed out of the country for reasons that remain unclear. A fourth rare earth industry official said on Wednesday that one of the 32 authorized rare earth exporters in China had been allowed to export one container of rare earths to the West on Tuesday and hoped to be allowed to ship another on Thursday. China's official stance remained unclear on Wednesday. In an apparent reference to a report on Tuesday's the official China daily newspaper, the Commerce Ministry said the report predicting a decline of up to 30% in rare earth export quotas next year was totally groundless and purely false. He added that no decision had been made yet on future quotas. Taliban elite, aided by NATO, joined talks for Afghan peace. Talks to end the war in Afghanistan involve extensive face-to-face discussions with Taliban commanders from the highest levels of the group's leadership who are secretly leaving their sanctuaries in Pakistan with the help of NATO troops, officials here say. The discussions, some of which have taken place in Kabul, are unfolding between the inner circle of President Hamid Karzai and members of the Quetta Shura, the leadership group that oversees Taliban war efforts in Afghanistan. Afghan leaders have also held discussion with leaders of Haqqani network, considered to be one of the most hardline guerrilla factions fighting here, and members of the Peshawar Shura, whose fighters are based in eastern Afghanistan. The Taliban leaders coming into Afghanistan for talks have left their havens in Pakistan on the explicit assurance that they will not be attacked or arrested by NATO forces. Afghans familiar with the talks say many top Taliban leaders reside in Pakistan, where they are believed to enjoy at least some official protection. In at least one case, Taliban leaders crossed the border and boarded a NATO aircraft bound for Kabul, according to an Afghan with knowledge of the talks. In other cases, NATO troops have secured roads to allow Taliban officials to reach Afghan and NATO-controlled areas so they can take part in discussions. Most of the discussions have taken place outside Kabul, according to the Afghan official. Palestinians should focus on strategy for statehood. The Palestinian leadership, near despair about attaining a negotiated agreement with Israel on two-state solution, is increasingly focusing on how to get international bodies and courts to declare a Palestinian state in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. The idea being discussed in both formal and informal forums across the West Bank is to appeal to the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, and the signatories of the Geneva Conventions for opposition to Israel's settlements and occupation, and ultimately a kind of global assertion of Palestinian statehood that will tie Israel's hands. The approach has taken one more weight as the stall in American-brokered peace talks lengthens over the issue of continued settlement building. "We cannot go on this way," said Hanan Ashrawi, a former peace negotiator who is a part of the inner ruling circle of the Palestinian Liberation Organization (PLO), which oversees the Palestinian Authority. "The two-state solution is disappearing. If we cannot stop the settlements through the peace process, we have to go to the Security Council, the Human Rights Council, and every international legal body." In an interview, she said that the PLO was holding high-level discussions on these options this week.
The Jordan Valley is basically one of the best natural anti-tank trenches in the world. Elevation difference of 1,000 meters, and basically anyone who controls the ridges above that valley can more or less block any ground invasion that would come from the east. So at least in the conventional scenario, that's very important. And if Israel doesn't control it, then someone else will control it, who will not only control the approaches from the east, but would control what's on the western side of that, and that's all the items that...
French workers vote to step up pension protests. French workers will step up their protests against pension reforms next week, a top trade union leader says. Bernard Thibault, head of the CGT Workers' Confederation, made the statement as union leaders prepared to discuss plans to hold a 7th day of national protest across France. Meanwhile, rolling strikes are continuing against the government plans to raise the pension age from 60 to 62. Blockades of refineries and fuel depots have led to fuel shortages. The pension reforms bill is set to be speeded up. Make sure it's voted on Friday, a parliamentary source has told Reuters news agency. And there we end today's bulletin of news analysis. Be with us in the coming weeks too. Thank you.